October 30th, 2021, the 23rd Sunday in the season of Pentecost. This reading from the Old Testament from the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 13 through 18. No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. The daughter in love. Listen, there once was a man whose land despaired for want of bread. As cruel irony would have it, he was a man from a town called the House of Bread, Bethlehem. And this man, along with his wife and his 2 sons, set out on a long journey toward the east and the grain-producing land of the Moabites, a people descended from Moab, the son of Lot's drunken and incestuous relation with his oldest daughter. Futility and rumbling bellies sent them, Elimelech, Naomi, and their sons, into Moab, far and away from their kindred, the home of their birth, and the shining skies over Judah. They came into the land of the Moabites as refugees, alien, foreign, and homeless. Bad times require desperate measures. Ask any immigrant. In time, Elimelech died, and his bereaved wife Naomi comforted herself at least that she still had her 2 sons upon whom she might rely for security, for bread, and for the warmth of familial affection. Her sons, in turn, married women from among the Moabites, Orpah and Ruth. But before they could see the 11th year in the strange land that had become their home, first one son and then the other died and was gathered to his fathers. Naomi was assaulted by one grief after another. In her old age, she now found herself stripped of her husband's protection, and suddenly she finds her 2 sons have been snatched from her in the relentless harvest of death. Naomi's life was falling to pieces, but then she heard word from afar that God had restored the fortunes of Judah, that there was bread enough in that once famished land, that all may eat and be filled. And so it was that without a purse, without a guard, and without any assurance at all that she might succeed in the venture of return to her ancestral home, Naomi determined to set out just the same. But before the journey had been so long underway, she had need to discharge one last responsibility. She released her 2 daughters-in-law that they might fend for themselves among their own people, now their herds had all departed, each and every man. The scene is as wrenching and heartbreaking as any in all of literature, either late or soon. Naomi's reduced condition, her bereft circumstances, bring her to the very jagged edge of utter hopelessness. She will soon change her name from pleasant to bitter, to signify the manner in which the Lord's hand has turned against her. For their part, Orpah and Ruth, wailing and weeping loudly, refused to abandon Naomi and vowed to accompany her to the land of her fathers and her mothers. But the crushing burden of her misery will not permit Naomi to draw the younger women into that hollow space of nothing left. For them, there is yet a possibility of new life with new husbands, in the open hope of children born to them as the first fruits of their wombs. In one final gasp and shuddering cry, Orpah kisses her mother-in-law one last time, turns crushed and forlorn, and bends her face toward her mother's home. Ruth, however, will not be dissuaded, and in a language for the ages, solemnizes a vow and a promise never to leave Naomi. Now here's the question. Why? Why? I should think the answer obvious, but the answer is not always practiced. Our first impulse is to celebrate Ruth's decision, to admire her in her pluck, to praise her spunk, to be in awe of her courage and her fortitude, not because these are easy, but because they are hard. We see Ruth as heroic only because we see ourselves as falling short of the measure she gave. We doubt that we could match her willfulness, her implacable fearlessness of the unknown, and her undaunted faith should we find ourselves confounded by a calamity so fierce as hers. But this is why we love her story so much. It is a standard set so high that it calls us into unceasing aspiration. But aspiration for what? And again, I think the answer is self-evident, but rarely fulfilled. The gospel provides us some needed assistance in order for us to understand this now. For the scribe who asked Jesus about the commandment that is first of all readily agrees with Jesus when he hears the answer and even goes so far as to offer his own gloss on what Jesus said. No commandment exceeds or excels the one that makes it categorically imperative to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. We link this commandment to a second as though the next was the exposition of the first. For if you love the Lord the way required in the law, you cannot help but love your neighbor as yourself. The latter is the full implication of the former. If you fail to love God, you will undoubtedly fail to love your neighbor. I believe it works in the reverse order as well. If these two laws are the same, then if you fail to love your neighbor, then you inevitably have failed to love God. Upon hearing Jesus' response, the scribe affirms the powerful truth it reveals, saying, "This is much more important than whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." After all, these are but material transactions, these sacrifices, intended to bend the will of God in our favor. What is holy about trying to buy God off with the blood of goats and the smell of roasted bullocks? Jesus agrees and underscores the scribe's wise response. I see Jesus, for my part, I see Jesus smiling, surprised as he tells the scribe, you're not far from the kingdom of God. What is played out in the gospel as a theological argument is lived out in real time in old Moab, in the thick and whip of hardship, the horror of destitution, and the utter vulnerability of two childless widows. Naomi and Ruth attempt to untangle their griefs and sorrows amid the dust and dirt of Moab. Each seeks to negotiate what is best for the other. Should Ruth go or should Ruth stay? Should she obey Naomi's directive to return to her mother's home? Naomi is convinced that her love of Ruth should set Ruth free to find solace beyond the wreck of loss among her own people. And get this, among her own gods. On the other hand, should Ruth hold course with Naomi over rock and cliff through hostile and inhospitable lands? Ruth has resolved to stick and stay with her bereft and devastated mother-in-law, come flood or drought, come the dark, cold night or the blistering scorch of noonday. Her love for Naomi, pleasant, kind, and loving Naomi, has quickened her ardor for the journey to see her mother through the hardest and the unkindest times yet to come. Ruth makes it clear to Naomi that she cannot be so easily shaken, nor can she be so briefly dismissed. Ruth, listen to her. Do not even think for one moment that you may put me off from following you. I will go wherever you go. If you stay anywhere at all, I will do the same, laying foot to foot with you if need be. I have not met your people in Bethlehem, but whoever they are, if they are your people, they will be my people, family for family, kindred for kindred, kith and kin. My gods are no more, so do not speak of sending me to them. My gods died when my husband died. Henceforth, your God shall be my God, and even if his hand has turned against you, as you say, I will serve him just the same. If you shall die in this land or the next, I shall not leave that place, but sink my resting stone and make my grave head to head with you in the black-brown soil. Neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else will be able to separate me from you, as God is my witness. I think I hear Paul reading this when he wrote Romans. So Ruth spoke, and so Naomi listened. Ruth did not speak haltingly nor nervously. She did not speak gambling that it would all work out, though the risks were seemingly insurmountable. Ruth was determined to share Naomi's fate, for good or ill, for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, and in sickness and in health. Ruth's vow to remain steadfast silenced Naomi, and she could no longer rebuff Ruth to send her away. I love me some Ruth. All stories do not have happy endings. And it seems to me the ones that hold us fast are the ones with tragic outcomes and terrible twists of fate. The story of Ruth is not one of these. Her story is the story of salvation and the story of divine favor over a cracked and fractured earth. Naomi and Ruth arrive in Judah at last at the exact time of the barley harvest. Say what? And just as workers begin to take the fields to glean and to reap, Ruth too finds her labors are welcomed to ease the burdens all must share. What? Before long, Ruth draws the attention of one of Naomi's affluent kinsmen. He takes her as his wife, and she begets a son, who begets in turn a son of his own, whom he shall call Jesse, the grandson of Ruth. And Jesse shall be the root of many sons, but the last of them he shall call David. And from David's line, after many generations, there will come a daughter and not a son. And her name will be Mary, and the Spirit of the Lord shall overshadow her. And in the town of Bethlehem, yes, the house of bread, on a night when frost clings to the wool of unshorn sheep, and while a star burns bright and haloed in the dark black sky, she will give birth to a baby whom she shall call Emmanuel, God with us. But none of this happens, none of it, if Ruth does not decide in the moment of greatest distress to be moved by love, a love she feels and a love she lives out, but never explains nor disputes. None of the story of salvation comes down to us unless Ruth takes hold of Naomi and never lets her go. Never loses sight of her and never stops speaking to her God. Ruth becomes my mother and your mother. She's the mother of our faith and the mother of the law we keep, to love until we die, and then to keep on loving, because the resurrection from the dead is real, because God is real, and because light shines out of darkness, and because dungeons will shake and chains will fall off, and prison doors will swing wide, and because the dry and parched places will become home once more to springs of water, and deserts will turn into an oasis of fruited trees and pools of cooling waters. So let me ask you, finally, how much did Ruth love God? That is easy to answer. How much did Ruth love Naomi?